Welcome, everyone. Today, we are going to have a journey into the intellectual playground of Julia Kristeva, a theorist who fearlessly crossed the boundaries between linguistics, psychoanalysis, feminism, and cultural criticism. Her ideas invite us to see language not as a stereo machine, but as a living creature shaped by desire, fear, and the maternal body. Let's first meet the brilliant mind behind these provocative theories. So I'm going to share my slide with you. So the title of the presentation today is Julia Kristeva, Language, Subjectivity, and the Feminine Unconscious. It will unravel about semiotic, abjection, and feminist cultural readings. Well, dear all, Julia Kristeva was raised in communist Bulgaria. At 25, she crossed borders into Paris, armed with a fellowship and a burning ambition. Imagine arriving just as Derrida publishes Of Grammatology, just before the May 1968 uprising. She dove straight into the heart of French intellectual revolution. She was much influenced by Todorov, Roland Barthes, and especially Bakhtin. She soon carved her own path. Her doctoral thesis, La Révolution de langage poétique, in 1974, became a groundbreaking landmark. Julia Kristeva knows displacement intimately. That personal history becomes part of her theory. Julia Kristeva often speaks of being stranger, geographically, linguistically, and emotionally. Dislocation dissolves the boundaries of her identity. She once wrote that she had no I anymore. This fractured sense of self helps explain her fascination with divided subjectivity. Now that we know where she comes from, let's see how her intellectual journey unfolds in phases. Her work evolves like a trilogy. First, linguistically charged, breaking open language's musical qualities. Number two, psychoanalytic refinement, the birth of the semiotic. And number three, maternal and existential, love, fate, and the stranger within. Each period riffs on the last, forming an expanding constellation rather than a neat timeline. So what questions does Kristeva pose to the theories we already know? She asks, how do we speak? Who speak? Who speaks? What goes down the structures of language? She engages Saussure, Lévi-Strauss, Barthes, and Derrida in a philosophical tango, challenging how voice structure can explain desire. Well, this is a good starting point. And now she extends Bakhtin's dialogism. For Bakhtin, meaning is never solitary. Every word is a social duet. Kristeva adopts this idea, emphasizing that writing is always juggles three entities: the subject, the addressee, and all texts that came before. History becomes a swirling synchronic moment rather than a straight line. But Kristeva also pushes beyond semiotics as a mere science. She transforms semiotics into a critic of both science and meaning itself. Meaning isn't a fixed souvenir. It's a signifying process. She borrows Marx's notion of labor and Freud's unconscious to argue meaning is always under construction. This leads her beyond static science into a deeper underground. Semioanalysis looks for the unthinkable, the unstable, the pre-verbal energies of language. It allows us to hear the heartbeat behind grammar. Her encounter with Derrida deepens the rupture in language. Derrida dissenters writing. Kristeva asks, language has a speaker, a body, a pulse. She insists on the speaking subject, a subject cracked open by desire. Writing is a territory where the inside and outside change costumes constantly. These cracks in the self have ethical consequences. Forget the unified moral hero of modern ethics. The subject is messy, divided, unfinished. Ethics becomes a practice of acknowledging our limits and negotiating our desire rather than declaring universal commandments. This ethics takes shape in her concept of the Korah. The Korah, to some extent, is a pre-linguistic maternal space. It is fluid, rhythmic, unrestrained. Here, meaning is, a, meaning is not yet boxed into rules. It is like the ocean before land. The maternal body becomes both comfort and chaos. It nourishes but also threatens dissolution. This tension leads us to her highly influential idea of abjection. The Korah as the other of signification, the abject maternal body as the ordering principle of the Korah. According to Julia Kristeva, abjection is what we expel in order to feel clean and whole. Barbara Creed takes this into her horror studies. The monstrous feminine drips with menstrual blood, wombs, milk, childbirth, while patriarchal culture frames the feminine as terrifying because it reminds us we were once dependent bodies. Menstruation becomes a political battlefield. So here, we should see in the picture, when a woman here gives birth, the baby here still um, covered all with blood, and also the mother here. So we could see the blood here is abjection. The patriarchal society constructs this as something dramatic and stigmatized. To some extent, when we talk about abjection and menstruation, menstrual blood blurs borders, inside versus outside, pure versus impure. Society will say, hide it, fear it, punish it. But for Kristeva, this impurity is precisely where creativity bubbles. This flows into how women write differently. Well, when we talk about Julia Kristeva and the creature feminine, so we remember about her dialogue with Helene Sixo. So Kristeva envisions feminine writing as poetic, rhythmic, non-linear. The semiotic erupts and disrupts the father's orderly symbolic laws. It is writing that smells like skin, that remembers the womb. Patriarchal fiction reacts by creating seductive threats, and usually it is framed as the femme fatale. The femme fatale is desired yet destroyed. She is a projection of patriarchal anxiety. A woman with agency is terrifying. Punish her so she doesn't spill into freedom. Ghosts haunt these anxieties as well. Female ghosts often return to avenge injustices, silenced love, maternal trauma, forbidden desire. They are abjected figures refusing to disappear. The living fear them because they reveal what society desperately buries. So, how does this reshape feminism? Well, Kristeva rejects simple essentialism. Instead, she restores the maternal to cultural power. The mother is not just biology, she is the primal side of meaning and love. A renewed feminism must listen to that deep pulse beneath language. Her work influences countless fields. And Julia Kristeva's theories echo across psychoanalysis, film theory, gender studies, and horror cinema. Barbara Creed's Monstrous Feminine, it was born from Kristeva's seeds. Of course, no queen of theory escapes critique. Well, some say that Julia Kristeva writes like puzzle dipped in philosophy sauce. Her politics appear hesitant, her prose a tall mountain to climb, but her influence persists because she gives language a body. an identity a wound. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's wrap up our journey. Kristeva reminds us that identity survives only by casting parts of itself away, and the feminine often becomes the scapegoat. Her concepts of semiotic, abjection, and the maternal urge us to analyze stories not only through logic, but through the unconscious humming beneath them. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and see you again next time.